Alright, we've got one box here. And I didn't get everything that had a release date for past Tuesday. In particular, The Boy and the Heron didn't ship. But, you know, at least that's something for later. So let's get through this stuff. First, we have One Piece Season 13 Voyage 8. Which, as you can see, is actually in the box this time. That's because my Friday friend I would normally watch this with, he's out of town. And so, let's see, next week is when he'll be back, and I make sure I will contact him to let him know this showed up, and so we'll time everything just right. You know, the inside's pretty stereotypical for One Piece release. Next up, we have Summoned to Another World for a Second Time. And this one, I didn't care as much for it. I think it had neat ideas. Regions A and B, English dub and Japanese subtitles. Okay, well, English and Japanese and blah 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 blah. I guess the problem was it just sort of was. Like, I guess it had an interesting idea, but didn't have a good idea of what it wanted to do with that interesting idea, I suppose. Yeah. Which is unfortunate, because it had some really amusing things about it, too. But, oh well. Nice and straightforward. And then last but not least, we have Bofuri Season 2. Which I think I've said, like, the first season wasn't bad, but there are little things about that's just, I don't know. Maybe if I watched it while it was airing, that would be one thing, but trying to watch all of it, I don't know, the little things that are just convenient got to me, I guess. Regions A and B. There we go, English and Japanese. So, this is limited edition version, so this box contains joystick. Oh, what? Joystick covers. And art cards. I'm wondering what joystick covers means. Well, something just fell out. Probably the joystick covers based on this. Okay. Joystick covers. Okay. Who'da thunk? Let's go ahead and take a look at these. Like, I guess if I were to come up with ideas or explanations for little things in Bofuri that kind of put me off, it's little things like it'll do something as if it's a bright idea, but it's like it's a little obvious to me, and so I have a lot of trouble believing that the main character would be like the first one to try something like that. Just little things like that. The developers added an item to the game, but didn't expect anybody to actually beat the challenge to do it. It's like, you know, people, they don't add items to the game with that kind of reasoning. Oh, I see, that is Bofuri. I thought it was an item because I was having trouble parsing the person in that shape. Oh well. A lot of other people should be pretty happy that this came out, though. It's a good collectible. Lots of good art imagery on it. Or anime imagery, I guess, might be more what I wanted to say. I was thinking if I could put the postcards in that, but probably not. Instead, I most likely want to flip through this. And everything about it looks pretty nice, so I think the people who, fans of the show, should be pretty happy with this. And one of the questions, maybe I can sneak these in there? No, it's sticking, so keep that out. So it's a small release, but here's this week's physical anime collection update. Alright, let's start getting down the list of stuff. Tasuketsu, Fate of the Majority, Episode 2. I can see why the ratings for the show maybe started going down. So I mentioned that Episode 1 had a good enough stinger and seemed like a fine setup, but Episode 2 took some step back from that and basically made the show... I don't know. I feel like it weakened its own premise and then set it up so it's like, okay, so we're supposed to be thinking about this other thing that's just sort of like, I don't know. It felt like Episode 2 was still okay, but I can see why a lot of people would vote it low, because the first episode would have at least piqued a lot of people's interest, but then Episode 2 probably made him a little disappointed, I guess. Oh well. Magical Girl and Evil Lieutenant used to be arch enemies, so the first episode of that aired, and it was okay. I think, I'm trying to think of anything about it particularly stood out. Maybe a little bit amusing. But I think I was going to at least give it another episode at least, because I'm not quite sure if it's really going to do anything with the premise. If it is, fine. If it's not, then I might not go past Episode 2 myself. We'll have to see. No Longer Allowed in Another World, Episode 1. I actually thought it was pretty amusing. I guess I'm just not quite sure what to specifically talk about, but it's definitely one of those ones where there is... It looks like there's going to be this penchant for, oh yeah, and we're adding a bunch of cute girls. You want to see cute girls, right? But what might make it a little more refreshing in that regard is, especially if you kind of compare it to something like How Not to Summon a Demon Lord, I think it's the main character. Like, How Not to Summon a Demon Lord actually has an interesting main character, but at the same time, underneath the covers, he is still kind of your stereotypical main with just an interesting character flaw that, you know, makes it where he doesn't socialize, so he pretends to be a demon lord, and it actually works out to be pretty entertaining. Whereas this one, the main character's detachment from the world is neat, and kind of makes it where, okay, there's all these cute girls probably forming on him. I don't know if there's going to be more than just the two, but, you know, the cute girls thing is just sort of... in my opinion, it makes it pretty funny. And there's a bunch of other little things it does that actually made me giggle quite a bit. So, you know, overall, I thought it was a fun first episode. Strongest magician in the Demon Lord's army was a human, episode 3. I guess it just sort of is doing stuff. I mean, there's more to it than just that, but it just sort of feels that way. I guess it's not strong, but I think based on some of the hints of the first episode and the way the second episode was going, that's probably about right. I might continue watching it, though. Failure Frame. I became the strongest and annihilated everything with low-level spells, episode 2. I'd say it's a fine follow-up. Like, the first episode kind of sets things up and kind of gives you a hint as to, I guess, things going on. Episode 2 definitely shows you, okay, this is how our main character succeeds, and so the only question is, what's it going to look like for episode 3? Episode 3 would probably be the important thing, where we see our character interact with other people. I hope. Although I'm not sure if what they set up is going to be fun or not, but I guess we'll have to find out. But there was a little bit of what this episode did that actually I thought was a little touching. So, you know, overall, off to a good start, I'd say. I Parry Everything, episode 2. What happened in this one? I guess entertaining and okay enough follow-up from the previous episode. Although the entire episode, I guess it felt a little incomplete, because while it did do a lot of stuff, neat stuff, fun stuff, interesting stuff, I guess the whole time, you see, the main character referred to I was going to do air quotes around demon, but actually, he referred to the demon that was very powerful and he fought as a cow. And so, in his mind, he didn't really do anything. He's like, I've never heard of a cow before. Wow, they're pretty tough, but at least I defeated a cow. I wonder how bad a demon is. Good thing I wasn't there to fight that thing. That all is kind of funny, but, you know, people keep talking past each other. So, nobody says the specific things like, thank you for saving me from that demon. What demon? I thought I saved you from a cow. Versus, yeah, I'm glad that I successfully defeated that cow. You know, the fact that some people may find that kind of humor funny. I don't care so much, but yeah, I guess it was there, and everything else was just fine for maybe setting up whatever it's about to do next. But I guess I'm curious what it's about to do next, and because it hasn't done it yet, I don't know, a little unsatisfied, itchy feeling, I guess. Days with My Stepsister, episode 2. I think more of the same. It's nice slice of lifey. It's not exactly being romantic, and that's something I kind of like about it. I guess the one thing I don't like about it. So, I kind of understand some of what the show is going for, and because it's not necessarily. I don't think it's something that people would think about, but like, the stepsister has a desire to be independent, self-sufficient, not rely on other people. And I guess the thing that rubs me the wrong way about that is basically that it's almost impossible for that to actually be the case. People can do that, but we're really actually talking about people who live in nature on their own, hunt their own game, grow their own crops, never see another member of civilization ever again, probably die alone. Because the idea that people rely on other people is kind of a universal. So, like, let's take me. Okay, of course I live in this apartment complex on my own. I pay all my own bills. That doesn't make me not reliant on other people. Even if you say, oh, well, yeah, he goes to his own job. And even if I cooked my own food and drove my own car and did the maintenance on my car, heck, the place I work is close enough, I could just walk there, so I wouldn't need a car. You know, you could say, oh, well, yeah, there's also still utilities. But even if you put that aside, just going to a job making money means I'm dependent not only on the other people I'm working with as coworkers, but even if I was just doing my own job, I'd be depending on people purchasing stuff, you know. So I don't know. I think I was overthinking it quite a bit. But I guess the whole point is, at some level, you are always dependent on other people. Unless you are literally living off the grid. And living off the grid alone, I guess. But I digress. Because I think the point is, you know, she kind of didn't want to be taken care of by other members of the family. And I think that's fine. Like, she wants to say, well, I can make my own way in the world. And I think that's actually pretty good. I do feel a little miffed that the show's like, well, I guess you could do this one thing for me where I guess she's doing some cooking for the main character. And to me, that almost feels a little convenient because it almost feels like it's setting her up as good wife material, I suppose, which just feels a little convenient and awkward, I guess. But overall, you know, kind of liking that stuff. Senpais and Otokonoko. I think it was a actually entertaining episode with people interacting. Problem is, the episode ended with, yeah, I guess the show's kind of going to be about that. I'll probably give episode 3 a shot to see if it, like, is resolving that early on. But I don't know. If that's the source of the show's conflict, I don't know that I care too much for it. But, you know, like I said, you know, it's a neat show. It's not one where you watch and say, oh, that person's trans. Maybe you'll watch it and say that person may be trans. And, you know, people of that community should also appreciate it, because whether or not the main character is trans doesn't change the fact that maybe he's not, but his friend is definitely gay. And he's having trouble dealing with it, and I think that actually makes it kind of interesting. And I think it makes the dynamic of the characters actually kind of interesting. But yeah, if his bitch of a mom has to be too present, I don't know that I'll care for the show too much. We'll have to see. Let's see. Next thing on my notes, I don't think episodes of Reincarnated as Slime or Misfit of Demon King Academy aired this week. Demon King, I actually get the impression maybe next week. I'm trying to remember if I remember exact times, but yeah. Which is fine. Quality Assurance in Another World, Episode 2, it's okay. I do appreciate the fact that it is kind of moving forward with a story thing, and that there's a little bit of existential dread it kind of added in there. But beyond that, I guess it sort of feels like the show isn't exploring the thing that would have interested me the most, which is the NPC girl who is talking to the main character, and kind of more of that interaction, because they're people from two different worlds, and she, for all intents and purposes, should be an NPC, but I don't know. It's still okay. It's just, I guess, maybe only okay. Good. Maybe. Dungeon People, Episode 2. Let's see. Yeah, fun stuff. You know, it's a show that you can tell is not intended to be taken seriously, and it's doing its own fun little thing, and fun little is about right, and entertaining enough. Bye Bye Earth, Episode 1. I think it was an okay first episode. I kind of question this teacher-student setup it has. Like, I don't know if it was just a one-time thing, or if this is like, because it almost feels impractical. But I guess the main character, her struggles, her preparing to set out on adventures sort of stuff, I think it's an entertaining enough first episode. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and scroll down and get everything else in there, because Saturday, Sunday have so many things. My Wife Has No Emotions, Episode 3. Okay enough. It's just more of the same problem I mentioned in Episode 2, where she doesn't really feel like a machine or an artificial intelligence. She feels like a person pretending to be sort of an artificial intelligence with conveniences for where it's going. And it introduces the sister and an amusing enough interaction with the sister. But overall, it does feel like, it feels like it just is what it is, I guess. And if there's anything I'm deliberating whether or not to watch the next episode for, it would be that the next episode is a swimsuit episode, which feels strange. But I do have to admit that I do have a swimsuit fetish. So I guess morbidly curious isn't the right word, but it almost feels like it could be with just how much stuff I'm watching, because I don't know. It's probably not a show that I'll hold on to for too much longer. It's okay. It's entertaining romantic comedy, but I guess maybe a little leaning heavy on the romance side with the very artificial feeling. Dolly and Bloom, Crafting a Fresh Start with Magical Tools, Episode 2. I'm really quite surprised that this episode, I still feel like I don't have a good feel for the show. Because I feel like the show has not even caught up to its own description of what the show even is. Like, the premise of the show, it's 2 episodes in, and it's not even reached the point where everything's been set up. And so at that point, it's a matter of the day-to-day happenings going, and I think most of it is okay. I think the invention stuff is actually really neat. I don't like the guy changing many things about the main girl, and she handles it pretty well, but at the same time it just feels a little bit like I don't know, like trying to mold your partner into something that they aren't. Maybe controlling, I don't know. I'm trying not to invest too much in it, because based on the description, I don't expect their engagement to last so long. I expect her to move on to something else. But it's 2 episodes in and they haven't done that yet. Oh well. A Nobody's Way Up to an Exploration Hero, Episode 3. Yeah, this show's probably highly likely to be something that I just drop. I like the character designs. I'm not sure if I like the character interaction. Maybe I think they're kind of neat. But the main problem is our main character So he has his life in the dungeon and his life at school. In both of them, he feels isolated from the other, even though he will talk about some stuff over there, but it just feels like they're isolated, and he feels a little too like things are just happening and he's just going with the flow sort of thing. And I suppose, you know, it's the same problem. Like if that kind of description for why something is engaging sounds familiar, it would probably be because a lot of people bring it up as kind of a problem that you see with a lot of Mary Sue characters. And he doesn't strike me as Mary Sue or Gary Stu, but this is definitely one of those big examples of a self-insert character, at least. So he doesn't make a lot of decisions and the plot happens. And so the writing for this one is... I'm not very whelmed. Oh well. Sakura of Rice and Ruin episode 2 I thought was a marked improvement on the first episode. I had my complaints about the first episode. You know, the main character is like, she seems like a whiny little bitch. And I mean that more as like a... I don't think it's the right word when I say bitch, but I don't know. It makes you want to think poorly of her. She just is whiny and entitled and all that stuff. And I mentioned that the human characters were a little annoying because they were like, oh, what's this? I'll touch everything I'm not supposed to. You know, kind of annoying. But episode 2 put them more in their element that they're supposed to be. And there's some elements of it that feel a little convenient. But we got to see our main character actually do some interesting action-y things. I don't think the action pieces in this show are particularly spectacular. But at the same time, they are actually kind of nice and refreshing. And the interaction between the people is actually a little more nice and refreshing. Even though a lot of the humans are kind of showing up to be kind of useless dumbasses for maybe 4 reasons that come to mind. But at the same time, it feels like it could be something that grows. We'll just have to see. But episode 2, I'd say, is a marked improvement. Shoshimin, How to Become Ordinary, episode 2. Yeah, I described the episode 1 to a coworker as I enjoyed the show mostly because there's a slight bit of there's something a little interestingly off about this, and at the same time the mannerisms of the characters are fun, and episode 2 feels the same. The entirety of episode 2 is about a mystery, but it's not a very, I guess, dramatic mystery. It's actually a rather simple one that was maybe intentionally set up by a character, but nevertheless it's a rather simple one that's kind of just about the characters talking about that, I guess. And I think that describes the show. You know, it's not something that you're gonna... It doesn't seem like something, at least, that you would watch that's like, oh yes, this is great. It's like, okay, you're kind of wondering what the relationship between those characters are. The way they act is very magnetic, cute, adorable, neat. Just some interesting combination of stuff. And the dialogue was just, you know, amusing, entertaining. So, yeah. Meanwhile, Elusive Samurai, episode 2. So, the main thing I was worried about is episode 1 was great. And I think there's no debating it in my mind. Episode 1 was great because I had a family friend come over. You know, he's not quite a brother, but, you know, the fact that he was literally built in the apartment over our garage at my parents' house. You know, we had a friend living in there at the time, family friend living there at the time, and he was born in there. So, you know, their families have always been pretty close to us, even though they live, well, not super far away. Actual family lives a lot farther. The point is, you know, he actually has been really enjoying Demon Slayer, and he was looking for something that's interesting, maybe with that slight violent edge to it, I guess. I don't think I'm using the right word, but maybe you kind of understand if you know Demon Slayer. Maybe if you know Elusive Samurai, you're like, oh, yeah, that... Even though it's a show that, you know, looks very cute and innocent, it definitely has some stuff that's like, oh, well, that person lost an arm, and that person died, and that person lost a leg, and that person lost a head. You know, it's very casual with that, but also it's kind of only casual with that because it's not the main purpose. But he also wanted something that was like in the samurai times, you know, feudal Japan. And it's like, Elusive Samurai sounds like this. So let's try watching the first episode because that just came out. Because you may find, oh yes, it actually has a good draw to it. And he seemed like he liked it, but I've really enjoyed rewatching episode 1 again. So it was a fun first episode. And so my big worry, especially rewatching episode 1, was, okay, what happens in episode 2? Is there anything change in the animation quality that just makes it feel less good? Is there any change in the writing quality? And I felt like the writing and the animation still stayed super relevant in episode 2. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the animation is going to keep up there. We're going to have to see how they're planning to do it. But, you know, it was a good second episode. Plus Sized Elf, episode 2, you know, about the same as what you'd expect. I think I mentioned before that episode 1 was, you know, probably something that I would only continue watching because it happens to be long enough for, oh, I feel like eating ice cream, but I don't want to put on a 20-minute episode. This one's 10 minutes, I can do that while eating ice cream. Beyond that, you know, it's entertaining enough, and probably some people will find it erotic enough. I do know that it's a little, it does tickle the male brain neurons in a jiggly kind of way, but, you know, beyond that, it's not much else to write to, so if you're not into that sort of stuff, if you find episode 1 isn't your thing, you'll probably find episode 2 to be kind of similar. And then we had episode 1 of Why Does Nobody Remember Me in This World? And one of the things I appreciate about it is there's definitely been plenty of shows that have this main character wakes up in a world or ends up in a world where his memories or her memories differ from everybody else's, and most of them handle it in the most cringe way possible. And I think a whole lot of that comes to like the thing previous anime where people keep talking past each other. So instead of asking direct questions and them asking direct questions and them saying, okay, well, I just saw all of reality suddenly disappear into a black sphere of nothingness while I was talking to Jean. You know, instead of that happening, instead, I guess the main character, you know, just, they don't do enough stuff to piece that together. It usually, it's cringe, but most things that I find that do that are entertaining manage to redeem themselves surprisingly quick. And I think this one, it felt a little bit of that, but I guess it felt a little more manageable. The real problem is that it ended with a good stinger, and I feel like the pacing for it is perfectly good. But now I'm kind of curious what's about to happen next, and I definitely want to see, I don't know, what kind of interactions happen. So, an okay first episode. We have episode 3 of A Journey Through Another World, Raising Kids While Adventuring. And pretty much it's kind of the same problem. So like this one did have a bit more action to it, but I guess more people just discovering, holy shit, these people are kind of tough. That's kind of interesting. So, and you know, that's entertaining in and of itself. What they're going to do with it is hard to tell at the end of episode 3. But the problem still mostly comes down to, for whatever reason, you know, these shows don't feel like those are actually kids, but you're supposed to find them cute and adorable like they're actually kids. It's a strange thing. You know, mostly I would say if you want kids that feel like they're actual kids, something like Figure 17 interests me more in that regard. That one that shows a little too real. It's interesting. But I digress. So it's okay, episode 3. I guess we'll see where it goes from there. That's the 3 episode mark, so normally I would be making an evaluation, but because episodes 1 and 2 came out immediately, well, we'll see what episode 4 gives, I guess. I mean, chances are I'm going to keep watching it because this is on my list of Sunday things, and, well, I don't know, I guess there's a couple more things on that list, but we'll see. My Dear Friend Nokotan, episode 2, entertaining. I think it's leaning a bit more on the humor that I didn't think it was planning to do. You know, episode 1 I thought was mostly funny because it just kept doing a lot of off-the-wall stuff. And it did a wide variety of it. But episode 2, it feels like, you know, I guess episode 1 had a bit more of a budget and stuff. So maybe the comedy level notched down a little bit. The production cost notched down a little bit. It's not necessarily bad, but I guess we'll have to see. Maybe I'll give episode 3 a shot as well. But you know, that one I could see saying I've got too many things to watch. Wisteria, Wand and Sorcery, episode 2. I guess an entertaining enough episode. I think one of the things I appreciate about it is, compared to the 2 other shows I'm aware of, which are just, oh yes, they're non-magicians going to a magic school. Something about them feels, I don't know. Something about Wisteria sounds a little more believable than those. And, you know, like Mashal was doing that for comedic purposes. And, well, I have things I could say about Black Clover, but I probably shouldn't say too much because I know too much, maybe. But interesting enough. And then I picked up a couple of other series just to give them a shot. McCain, Too Many Losing Heroines, episode 1. I guess entertaining enough. I mean, I think a lot of the characters and stuff are set up really well. It's mostly an issue of I guess if it ends up feeling a little too romantic, we'll have to see. It's probably fine. Autry, My Dear Moments, episode 1. You know, interesting first episode. It's hard to say what kind of series this is going to be, because it's kind of a setup episode, but it's also not one of those setup episodes that, you know, lends yourself to saying, oh, okay, this is what it's going to be after this episode. So I'm not quite sure what the episode by episode is supposed to be, but it seems touching enough and just an interesting, fresh idea. I did see some people say that they really like the Robot Girl. It's like, yeah, she's actually kind of interesting. If we were to compare it to My Wife Has No Emotion, I think it's more interesting because she does seem so human, and the characters are behaving as if the possibility that she isn't all that human is very possible, and she's off-putting to them in a way that I feel is more interesting, and it's not couched in being a romantic comedy, I guess. But, you know, there's a bit of a mystery going on. It's interesting, an interesting setup, like I said. The Osan Newbie Adventurer, episode 3. Okay enough. I think it resolved stuff, although it would have been stuff that I would have preferred to have seen by this episode. So again, you know, it feels like it's ever so slightly delaying maybe where it should be, but it's entertaining enough. I think this episode gave some of the stuff we would have wanted to see-ish. I guess my only problem with it is of the noble people, I don't like that the one girl I guess started behaving, I don't know. I just wanted them all to be a family of dipshits, but I guess they decided, well, the girl's kind of cute, so maybe she's going to be into him. I hope they're not going that way, but it kind of feels like they are. But, oh well. It's an okay beginning of the show, I suppose. Spice and Wolf, episode 16. Again, I don't remember if any of this stuff happened in the old Season 2. I'm guessing it did, and I just don't remember Season 2 at all. But, overall, you know, it's, entertaining drama. I would comment on certain things about it. Don't want to spoil anything for anybody who hasn't seen it yet. But, you know, for the most part, entertaining drama, and I'm definitely interested in seeing how it resolves in the next episode. Well, alright. Beyond that, let's see. Tomorrow, you know, the day I should be uploading this video, we'll have Lara Croft in Dead by Daylight. I guess I've done as much setup in Dead by Daylight as I was maybe going to be able to do, which is pretty much, I'm at 2 million blood points. I've got 3 daily challenges to redeem, and hopefully the 2 redemption codes for 600,000 BP total will still be available tomorrow, and I will redeem them and dump them all into Lara Croft. And I guess I got 1 unclaimed challenge in the tome. So, you know, that's maybe like 2.75 million blood points ready for tomorrow-ish. Close enough. So, yeah, I guess I'm about ready for that. Definitely excited to see if she gets a cosmetic that would be a classic set. I did see a thing that kind of suggested it would be there. She won't look like her PlayStation 1 graphics, but at least classic outfit Lara would be highly appreciated. Just for the nostalgia value. Beyond that, let's see, I didn't really make much progress in Starbound, and I fired up Pokemon because I realized they had outbreaks. One of the outbreaks in particular was like, oh yeah, this one should have been in the game to begin with, the Alolan Raichu. It's like, why the hell is Alolan Raichu not in the game? You should have been able to get an Alolan Raichu by evolving your Pikachu in the region that's very Alola-like. That's not just a missed opportunity, that's a crime against humanity that Pokemon Company has done, Nintendo has done. But, you know, that said, you know, I could catch one, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to catch one of those, and Mimikyu outbreaks, I'll catch one of those just to get a shiny, and you know what, I'll go get a Pichu because I want to be able to register all the shiny links. Oh, that was all pretty quick. Okay, I'll go get a Pikachu. You know, just there's some nice, relaxing catching Pokemon. Yeah, very pleasant. Outside of that, I'm not sure if I have anything else to really comment about. For those of you that have watched me a long time, I think, is my hair up here maybe starting to thin? So, might be getting old. I'll have to decide what kind of hair I want if I am balding up there. I mean, maybe I don't bald, maybe it just stays thin, I don't know. Should I cut it all off? Should I do the let it grow out? That's a bit of a samurai look, right? I'm not sure yet. I'll have to figure it out. But, you know, that's a part of getting older. Yeah, I guess I can't think of anything else to really chat about. Y'all, have a nice week.